Hey folks, Nathan here from Star Wars Beyond the Films, the Star Wars Timeline Gold, and the Star Wars Gaming Podcast Cloud City Casino, which you can find at StarWarsReport.com, bringing you a very, very delayed look at Edge of the Empire Mask of the Pirate Queen. This is an adventure module for Edge of the Empire. It is the last of the three I had been sitting on for a while that I hadn't had a chance to get to. So finally, yes, we are caught up on all of the Edge of the Empire, Age of Rebellion, and Force and Destiny RPG books from Fantasy Flight Games at this point. This is an adventure designed for Edge of the Empire. Of course, you can play it with characters created from the others, but obligation does come into play here, and this is a bit of sort of a bounty hunting or fringer type of adventure, as Edge of the Empire tends to be, so keep that in mind. This may not be the right type of scenario for, say, a Force-sensitive character who wants to become a Jedi. There are some morally gray lines here. One thing that's not a gray line with this book is that it's not actually one of those books that tends to fit a more recent approach, which is simply to say, hey, a Star Wars game needs to just be an authentic Star Wars experience. It doesn't have to be set in one continuity or another. Not canon, not legends, just blend them all together with bits and pieces of both, and who gives a crap? This book is very seeped within background found in the Legends continuity. It pits a group that is created for this called the Veiled Sorority, which is essentially a female-led pirate group led by a mysterious queen who hides her identity with a mask, or queens who hide their identity with an identical mask so as to be interchangeable and supposedly immortal. And they're going up against the Zan Consortium. Yes, Tiber Zan Consortium that we know from Star Wars Legends video games. Now, when they go into the background of some of these locations, they also refer to the Great Galactic War and events taking place relating to Seleucami and Ord Mantell as it pertains to the Old Republic MMO from BioWare. So yes, this is definitely one that is fitting within Legends much more so than canon. Not a lot of canonical references within this book, which makes sense given that it was one of the earlier Edge of the Empire adventures. So, what you've got, of course, you'll have an initial setup, an adventure overview, and it's an adventure that gets done in 3 episodes, essentially. The first, Search on Seleucami, takes place, of course, on Seleucami. You are called to essentially assist the Zan Consortium in hunting down the Pirate Queen from the Veiled Sorority, because they've been attacking these consortium vessels for about a month. They don't tell you why at first, but you will find out by the end why it was that the attack started in the first place. And it's a little bit more murky and less black and white than one might first assume. You wind up eventually dealing with someone tied into the Queen, we'll put it that way, and wind up needing to go on another mission, which is to track down where you think the Queen is now, which is Ord Mantell, a place called Worldport. And among other things, like delivering some poison spice and trying to fix a gladiatorial-type bout, you do wind up dealing, again, with the Queen and her minions from the Veiled Sorority. But of course, with another episode still to go, it doesn't end there. That brings us to a final confrontation that winds up being essentially a space battle where, amid it, you will need to get aboard the Queen's ship to finally go after her and take her out. That's Prepare for Borders, which is Act 3. It's a very well-balanced adventure. You've got some investigation, you've got some action, you've got some things really for all the different people who might be playing in an Edge of the Empire campaign to do. Although, again, if you're playing with characters who are Force-sensitive, leaning towards Jedi, especially if you created them within Force and Destiny, or perhaps you're dealing with characters who are very much focused on the clash between the Empire and the Rebellion, which you might have created in Age of Rebellion, they're not necessarily going to fit this as well as some other adventures from Edge of the Empire. This is much more of an Edge of the Empire specific type of adventure for those types of characters. You're going to have a lot that all these different characters can do. Nice twists and turns, especially if the Game Master focuses on trying to make sure the mysteries remain mysteries until the time comes for revelation. This is one of those ones where you definitely probably want the GM to check it out, but not the players, at least initially. Now, is it free of continuity issues? For the most part. There are a few instances that have me scratching my head. Like at one point they say that the attacks that have been going on by the Veiled Sorority against the Zan Consortium have been happening for months. only then you find out that the first attack was nearly a month ago. Well, that's not months. We get references here to clone troopers, who, after the Clone Wars, formed a mercenary group. Well, Edge of the Empire and the rest of these stories are set shortly after the Battle of Yavin. At least that's what we've been told about Fantasy Flight Games over time. And then we get told that, well, they formed that mercenary group several decades ago. Well, a maximum of about 19 or 20 years really isn't several decades, is it? And they refer to some clone troopers who are fighting as mercenaries as being around 40 years old, and therefore biologically closer to 70 to 80, when that's kind of an exaggeration. They'd probably be closer to about 30 or so years old, 32-ish, 33, which puts them closer biologically to between 60 and 70 than between 70 and 80. But in general, the kind of issues we see with internal chronological inconsistency don't really plague this book, though they are there in small doses, as much as we see that kind of thing plaguing Edge of Rebellion. So if you want something internally consistent, very much tied into Legends, where all your Edge of the Empire characters are going to have some fun stuff to do and an intriguing adventure, you probably will want to check out, if you can still find it, Mask of the Pirate Queen.